Hello and welcome back. This is episode 25 of my vlog series about creating the art for a 2D video game. And in today's episode, I am making a church or a cathedral or some sort of religious structure to go as basically a centerpiece to the rival kingdom that I've been working on. If you have been watching any of my latest episodes, you know that I am working on all of the buildings and the assets we need for another kingdom that is going to be on the map that you can visit. And this one is much, much nicer than yours. I just finished the manor house. I think last episode was where I showed all of the mock-ups that I did for all of the interior rooms, and I did like all of the furniture and everything for that. And so now I'm moving on to some of the other buildings and different structures that are going to be in the town, and one of them is a big cathedral, which I thought would be like really a cool sort of centerpiece, basically. So in the middle of town square, there's a big cathedral where a lot of the just like social comings and goings on, you know, in the town happen sort of around this building. And as you can see over there in the corner, I've slapped a couple of inspiration photos there on the side of my canvas. And basically those are just to give me an idea of the and remind me of the feel that I'm going for, you know, for this structure, for this building. And it was really nice to have them there. Of course, you know, to give me ideas of, you know, different shapes and that I could make, but also just as a constant point of reference, and I could compare, you know, what I was drawing to those and, you know, decide for myself whether or not I thought it had the same feel or the same impact, because I really did want this building to feel very grand, to feel very almost imposing. And I wanted it to have, you know, turrets, and I wanted it to have a lot of detail, and I wanted it to have domes and stained glass windows and just all of the, you know, the trimmings on it. But that being said, I also wanted to be very careful so that it didn't look like a house of worship for any real world religion. And that was part of the challenge of this, really, because to be totally, completely, 100% honest, I have no idea what sort of religion these people practice. I should know, because it's our world, so maybe at some point we need to sort of nail that down as part of our, you know, world building efforts. But at the moment, I don't know. I don't know what it is they practice, and it's not super important. The important thing is that you can recognize this building as a religious structure, a house of worship, and at the same time not associate it with any real religion, because of course we don't want to misrepresent anyone, or certainly don't want to offend anyone. But that was, the part of the challenge, you know, of creating this building. And I asked my husband, I said, does this look like a church? And he said, yes, it looks like a church. I'm like, okay, good, that's all I need to know. I didn't ask him, does it look like a church from anything specific, or does this look like a temple or a mosque or anything like that? I didn't ask him that, probably because I didn't want to know the answer. But the important thing is he says it looked like a church. So, you know, win for Aaron. And I'm actually really excited to have this building done in particular, because I feel like I mentioned before, you know, it really is the focal point, the centerpiece, the crown jewel of the town site, really. And I imagine that a lot of the events and festivals are probably going to take place. I'm imagining there being like a big town square in front of it. And I'm imagining a lot of the events that go on in the town, in the city, are going to happen right there, sort of on the doorstep, as it were, you know, of this church. And I'm envisioning like, you know, a big fountain maybe in the middle, and there'll be shops and things like that, you know, that I'm currently working on. But this is really, you know, the most magnificent structure in the town. You know, up until this point, I was thinking that, of course, Pontus and Charity's house was the nicest, but now I think that's up for debate. This is pretty darn nice, and we've got a character. I think I'm almost positive he's showed up in a video. I'm almost positive. Vincent, our priest, who basically, these are his digs. He works here and he lives here. He's got it pretty good. Although this week I was working on the interior, you know, for the church. So I did all of the furnishings for the inside, the walls, the floors, the trim, windows, all of that stuff. And so I did it for like the main chapel, and then also at the back of the chapel there is a door that leads into like Vincent's private personal apartment. But I feel like it has a bit of an almost cold feel to it. Like it just feels like a cold old church, which is what I was going for. You know, that is what I wanted, but it does not feel especially cozy to me. I don't know, maybe churches aren't really supposed to feel cozy. So anyway, I don't know. So like I said, that's up for debate whether or not Pontus and Charity have the nicest house, or does Vincent have the nicest house, because his has stained glass windows, and I gotta say, it's really hard to compete with stained glass windows. But Pontus and Charity have like fireplaces and some more like creature comforts. So, you know, you can battle that out amongst yourselves. So anyway, of course, like I was saying, all of the churches, all of the interior for the church is all done. I finished up the flooring and the walls and the trim and all of that stuff. All of the furnishings are all done this week. It did not take me anywhere near as long to do that. It just took me part of this week, you know, to do all of that, as opposed to like the manor house, which took like 3 weeks to do all of the interior trappings. And so this week I'll be kept busy. I'm trying to remember what's all on my list of things I need to do for this city, but I think, let's see, I know there's a tavern I've got to do. I have to do some houses for some of the other characters that live there. There'll be like a workshop. We've got a carpenter character. He needs to have his workshop. There's a big, like, the royal stables that I need to do. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. And then there's just things like decorative sort of items, like that fountain I was talking about, or like I'm kind of envisioning the city proper being surrounded by a wall and having, you know, big gates. And so I want to do something like that. That just keeps everything sort of enclosed and cozy. So anyway, I've got lots to work on, you know, this next week. But this was one of the bigger items, and some of those things, especially like furniture for some of the other houses and stuff, I will be able to start recycling and reusing, you know, more of some of those things. And to a certain extent, I've been able to do that a bit already with things like beds, because of course everybody needs a bed. And so I can kind of reuse the same base frame, you know, for the bed, and then just make some minor tweaks, you know, change the bedding to suit the person who's actually, you know, using the bed. And so things like that I can reuse. But then there are things like in the church, I pretty much only need a giant organ for the church. I don't really picture anyone else having a huge church organ in their house. So that's one of those things that it takes a while to make, and it only gets one use. So it does eat up a lot more time. So as much as I can, I try and be really economical with the way that I'm designing things. You know, if I'm making a bookcase, well, you know, chances are somebody else is going to have a bookcase in their house. And so I will reuse, if not the whole thing, at least portions of, you know, a bookcase for somebody else's, you know, house. Maybe I'll change out, you know, add some more decorative kind of things on the shelves, or change some colors, but the bones of the structure I can reuse, and it saves me a lot of time, actually. I actually started doing something similar when I'm designing character sprites. I have essentially like a male base model and a female base model, because my male characters and my female characters are essentially have the exact same skeleton. I mean, I change, you know, their head shape a bit. Obviously, they get new clothes and different, you know, faces, but it's like the bare base shapes are basically all the same, and they're pretty similar between them. The main difference, of course, is that, I mean, their heads are probably about the same size between the male and female figures, but their bodies, like the torsos, you know, on the male figures are bigger, and so their arms are bigger as well. And the females have, you know, much smaller torsos and smaller arms, you know, to fit on there. And that's a huge time saver too. When I'm not drawing from scratch every time. I basically have like a base skeleton that I work from. And it also keeps all of the characters like in proportion to each other for the most part, unless I purposefully want to make somebody bigger or more distinct. I can use that model sheet basically that I gave myself to make sure that everybody looks like they belong in the same universe. And I do stray from it occasionally. Like if you look at Pontus, for example, I needed him to look really chubby. Like I needed him to look like he could stand to lose a few. Like I needed him to look a bit on the big side. And so I didn't use my standard male torso is more like inverted triangle shape, and his is more like blob shaped. So I did change his, and I also strayed more from like the model I use for doing everybody's arms, because he has big puffy sleeves. And, I wanted to really accentuate his roundness, overall. He's just a round sort of guy. And so I did stray a bit from my model when I did him. And actually, I ended up having to rein it in a bit, because I remember my first pass at him, he looked almost too different. So when I put him next to other, character models, he looked like he was in the wrong game, that sort of thing, where he just didn't match anybody else. And so I reined it in a bit, went back, tweaked, and I think he looks good. I think he looks like he matches everybody else. But he does still stray from that base model, that I've set for most of my characters. Oh, and something else that's exciting is Pontus and his whole family are up and running now. They don't have any dialogue yet, but still they have, their daily schedules, and so the manor has been built like in-game, and you can go visit it. And Pontus and his wife Charity and his daughter Eustacia all have their daily routines, and you can follow them around if you'd like and just see what they're up to. But it's pretty cool to have another location to be able to visit in the game now, other than just, your home kingdom. Just gives you somewhere else to go and something else to, check out. So at some point I will be showing that, now that it's up and running. Of course, last week I showed all the mock-ups for the interior of the manor, and it basically looks like that. But I think I may wait a little bit before I show actually any gameplay, because I thought it would be kind of cool once the entire kingdom is built to do sort of a kingdom tour, as you will, as it were, to show you like in-game what everything looks like. So I may hold off on that for a while, and then just do a video where I just show off the whole, the whole kingdom, or most of it, just walk around and show everything once it is all put together. We'll see, though, how long my resolve holds, because I'm super excited about it, and it's really hard not to just show everything. And so we'll see. Maybe I'll just get too excited and I'll just show it as we complete it. But if I can rein it in, if I can keep myself in check, maybe I'll just wait to show that as one big gameplay dump and just show the whole kingdom that we've been working on. But still, of course, in the meantime, I will be showing all of the individual structures as I draw them, but maybe just not show like the final completed finished product until there is one to show. And I'm just about done here drawing this church. I'm just putting the last of the shadows on it, and then I make a few color tweaks, I think, and then it'll be done, and I will show you the finished sprite sheet for the church, and also for a couple of, I added a couple of accessories to the church, and I didn't remember to actually record the process of me drawing them, but they're just small things. You'll see here in a minute. I put some stairs on the front of the church, and I needed them to be a separate piece so that your character could walk on the stairs but not through the building. And then the other thing I did was added some like empty flower beds that are going to go in front of the church here. And at the moment they are empty because I need to be able to change out the plants seasonally, so I will make the plants separately. But hopefully you've enjoyed watching me draw this church, and of course, as always, I will be back again next Friday with another video. So until then, enjoy your week, and I will see you then.